We are going to go ahead and start. We are in a big room, making the assumption that everybody on the subcommittee is going to come to this hearing. Since that's not likely to happen, at least not all at once, we wanted to make sure we had accommodations for them. And we are going to start this hearing, and we're going to recess in a few minutes because of votes. We will try and go to the end of the first vote and the beginning of the second vote. So we will recess for those votes, and then Senator Moran and I will come back and finish the hearing, and hopefully members will come in and out during this period. So thank you very much, Director Panchanathan, for being here this afternoon. You are the first witness of this subcommittee for this Congress in open session, so we're delighted that you're here. And today the committee will consider the fiscal year 2022 budget request of the National Science Foundation and discuss the agency's role in securing U.S. competitiveness. I really think it's appropriate that we start this year's budget hearing with the National Science Foundation because the agency is so instrumental in our country's economic success, and given the challenges ahead of us, it's particularly fitting this year. Much of the nation's global leadership and economic prosperity over the 20th century and early 21st century stems from innovation which is rooted in scientific discovery, and this would not have been possible without significant public investment in research and development. Federal R&D helped drive the space race in the 1960s, the development of the internet and GPS in the 70s and 80s, and the mapping of the human genome in the 90s and early part of this century. Without investment of significant taxpayer resources, these milestones, and importantly, all the industries and innovations that have resulted, would not have occurred. As a country, we're now at a crossroads. Our global competitors, particularly China, are pouring resources into scientific and technological innovation. And if we want to sustain our economic prosperity, global leadership, and national security, we cannot afford to be caught flat-footed. Fortunately, after several years of anemic budget requests for the National Science Foundation under the previous administration, President Biden has requested $10.2 billion for NSF. This is an increase of $1.7 billion, or 20% above the fiscal year 2021 enacted level. While we only have limited information regarding the fiscal year 2022 budget right now, as we await the release of the full budget later this spring, it's clear that the NSF request would make important investments in research, in technology development, and in education. The President's fiscal year 2022 request includes the creation of a new NSF Directorate to focus on technology, innovation, and partnerships. This directorate would focus on critical technologies that will define the next several decades, like artificial intelligence, quantum computing, and clean energy. Further, as part of his infrastructure proposal, the American Jobs Plan, the President proposes investing $50 billion in NSF technology and competitiveness projects. This proposal is similar to bipartisan legislation that will soon be reintroduced in the Senate called the Endless Frontier Act. I'm very pleased that we're talking about making investments in R&D to maintain U.S. competitiveness. I think these investments are vital to our economic competitiveness and to our national security. But I also think we need to be thoughtful about how we proceed. We should devote resources to successful existing programs whenever possible. Where there are proposals to create new programs, we need to ensure that the agencies tasked are the right ones and that there are no other agencies that are better positioned to carry out the goals or that are already serving in the role. As we push forward to beat our global competitors, we need to ensure that we do not lose what makes NSF so special. To this point, I'm pleased to see that the President's budget request does not overlook making investments in curiosity-driven exploratory research that sets the stage for future breakthroughs. NSF has a fundamental role in both technology development and basic research, but no agency is better at nurturing exploratory research than NSF. The budget request includes $9.4 billion to support fundamental research and related activities, an increase of $1.6 billion above fiscal year 2021. This includes a total of $1.2 billion for climate and clean energy research as we work to reduce emissions and create energy efficiency and renewable energy jobs. As part of these investments in research and development, we need to think about how we're training the next generation for careers in science, technology, engineering, and math, or STEM. And ensuring that we have a diverse, inclusive workforce ready to lead in STEM is something that I have and will continue to fight for in the Senate, and I think it's something that members of this committee have supported. NSF makes critical STEM education investments in states around the country. Just last year, the University of New Hampshire received $2 million from NSF to support a new innovative project that aims to strengthen teaching curriculums for STEM subjects. To that end, I'm pleased to see that the budget request includes an increase of $100 million to increase STEM participation within underrepresented groups. So, as you can see by my opening remarks, which are longer than usual, we have a lot to discuss. So I will now ask my ranking member, Senator Moran, to offer his opening remarks.
Senator Shaheen, thank you for convening this hearing, and thanks for your consultation with me about its importance. And I agree with you, this is a good place for us to start as we begin our first efforts at developing a fiscal year 2022 bill writing for CJS. You and I have had a successful and productive relationship together here on this subcommittee, and I look forward to working with you again to produce a bipartisan fiscal year 2022 bill. Dr. Panchanathan, I'm sure I didn't do that right, but I hope I'm close, Doctor. I look forward to knowing you well enough in which I will get your name correct. I want to welcome you to this subcommittee. As I indicated to you briefly before the committee hearing began, it's good to have you here. I'm anxious to hear your views. I think the role of the National Science Foundation is important as it supports research across all scientific fields. The proposed budget before us of $10.2 billion is a significant increase for the foundation. It represents a $1.7 billion, nearly 20% increase over the budget that we provided last year. With that proposal comes some responsibility on our part and yours as well. We need to make certain as we fund groundbreaking research, we need to make certain that the investments are made wisely and that they can contribute to the benefit of our nation. Absent many budgetary deals today because of this so-called skinny budget, I would hope that the proposed increases will enable NSF to make strides in increasing its success rate for high-quality proposals to be funded, and that it will enable much broader participation. And I emphasize this, it would enable much broader participation in basic research from institutions across the country. I've had the opportunity to hear from researchers around the country, and they tell me there's no geographic limitations, no boundaries on where good ideas come from. Quality research can be found in all corners of our country, including Kansas and certainly in the heartland. NSF has the opportunity to build up research capabilities around the nation, and in places that it's currently not funding applications to any significant degree, we need to enlarge that base where research, technical science, and engineering happens. And I hope that once we see the details of the NSF budget, that such emphasis will be evident. While there's great excitement to increase investments in basic research, and I've been involved in a number of those here in my time in the Senate, this transition, we need to transition those results from that research into drivers of economic and job growth. We also cannot forget that we need a technically skilled workforce for the jobs in the future. NSF should be a part of preparing workers for tomorrow's jobs created by the technologies being invested in today. The U.S. will need a workforce to push the frontiers of knowledge and that has the skills and to thrive in knowledge and technology-intensive economy. An example from my state of NSF taking advantage of a local opportunity is found in the Manhattan Area Technical College, Manhattan, Kansas Area Technical College. The Department of Homeland Security's National Bio and Agro Defense Facility, soon to be open in Manhattan, is in great need of a large number of technicians trained to operate and maintain clean rooms, but cannot find enough qualified technicians. Local researchers identified a nexus between this problem and worked with NSF funds in undergraduate education, creating a solution that will be beneficial for years to come locally while supporting nationally consequential research. Director, I look forward to hearing from you as to how you envision bringing STEM education and basic research to broader audiences in order to tap the intellectual resources of our nation. NSF has a long history of coordinating, convening, and partnering nationally and internationally to address these complex issues and to reach innovative solutions. But the success of NSF comes with a risk. We have seen a rise in attempts to capitalize on innovations created through NSF funding by taking intellectual property and sending it outside of our borders. With the proposed budget increase and other spending proposals, that risk will become even higher and potentially harder to track. It's important that NSF have clear guidelines, oversight, and enforcement to discover and to deter such activities. We need to be wise in how we plan to move forward in funding our engine of basic research, but bold enough to stay at the forefront of science and technology. I know that by investing in research, we are investing in our future. Director, I look forward to hearing your testimony today and working with you to ensure that NSF retains its place as a preeminent agency for basic research across a balanced and forward-looking scientific portfolio. I can hardly see you, Doctor, but it's nice to have you here, and I look forward to developing a good and solid working relationship with you.
Thank you very much, Senator Moran. And Director, I will turn it over to you. We ask that you try and make your statement in 7 minutes, but if you're not able to do that, we welcome your submitting the entire statement for the record. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And good afternoon, Chair Shaheen and Ranking Member Moran and members of the subcommittee. It's truly a pleasure to be with all of you today. And being the first person in-person testimony makes me feel so special about NSF. It's truly an honor to appear before you today to discuss NSF's many amazing accomplishments and how we can accelerate innovation for the benefit of all Americans. I would like to start by thanking this committee for the continued strong support for NSF. Your support has enabled NSF to advance research and innovation, which has brought remarkable benefits to our nation. For over 7 decades, NSF has played a leading role in building U.S. leadership in science, engineering, and technology, and has an incredibly strong record of investing in the brightest minds with outstanding ideas. The internet, 3D printing, the economic theory of underpinning spectrum auctioning, and kidney exchanges, companies like Qualcomm, and even PCR testing, which has been critical to the fight against COVID-19, are just a few examples of the outcomes and benefits of NSF investments. From piloting the SBIR program in the 1970s to the world-renowned entrepreneurial I-Corps training program, NSF has a rich history of fostering the innovative spirit that permeates the research enterprise. I would also like to thank Congress for the funding in the CARES Act and the American Rescue Plan to address the impacts of COVID-19. The research community has been integral to our ability to combat the virus. However, COVID has had a profound impact on them, especially the early career researchers. NSF will invest these funds wisely, helping the most severely impacted and most vulnerable. We are also at a pivotal time in our nation's history. For the first time in decades, the United States leadership in science and engineering is facing intense global competition. Other nations, especially China, are investing vast resources in basic research and industries of the future, like artificial intelligence, quantum information science, and next-generation wireless. The United States needs to take a comprehensive approach to R&D investment that brings science, engineering, and technological innovations to market much more rapidly. Doing so requires creating engines of economic and talent development across the entire nation, and more tightly integrating curiosity-driven research and use-inspired outcomes. The scientific pursuit of knowledge and understanding cannot be separated from the development of new technological capabilities. NSF's capacity to produce breakthroughs, to innovate, to cultivate the industries we cannot even imagine today, and to inspire the domestic talent needed to power our country forward must be strengthened at speed and scale. My leadership team and I have crafted a bold vision for the agency. We must first advance the frontiers of science and engineering research into the future. Through strategic investments, NSF steers the frontiers of discovery and innovation and produces breakthroughs that keep US at the forefront of global leadership. Second, we must ensure accessibility and inclusivity in STEM. There is tremendous untapped potential throughout our nation. Every demographic and socioeconomic group in every geographic region is full of talent that must be inspired and given the opportunity to participate in STEM. Finally, America must lead by our actions and our values. We will work with like-minded partners who share these values, and we must and will take the necessary steps to safeguard taxpayer investments. The foundation for this vision is partnerships. They are powerful tools to leverage resources and deliver more impactful results. NSF has a history of cultivating and fostering environments where partnerships thrive. Over the past few weeks, the administration has released the American Jobs Plan and the FY22 discretionary request. These proposals invest in research and development across the government. The proposals also include increased investments at NSF, including a $50 billion investment in a new technology directorate and a 20% increase to the NSF budget in FY22. The budget increases funding for fundamental R&D and will strengthen NSF's ability to champion the basic research that is critical to our future. In addition, we know there are opportunities for translational impact in all science and engineering fields that hold enormous potential benefits. The proposed directorate will be a cross-cutting platform that leverages, energizes, and rapidly brings these innovations to market. NSF will not abandon our current mission or be redundant with other mission agencies who are doing vital work. We all know we have a large gap in bringing fantastic innovative ideas to market and society. This is our opportunity to rapidly change that. The budget request also invests in increasing the participation of underrepresented groups in science and engineering, which is exceedingly important for our nation. Advances in technologies like artificial intelligence, quantum information science, and even the technologies we cannot yet conceive of will influence the global balance of power for generations. We must commit ourselves to this challenge so that we are leaping forward and ensuring that the race for global leadership is not even close. Thank you for the opportunity to testify before you today. With the continued support of this committee and the Congress, NSF will bolster fundamental research across all fields of science and engineering and unleash rapid innovations, securing our future for generations to come. Thank you, Madam Chair and Ranking Member Moran.
Thank you very much for your testimony, Director. We are going to open it up to questions. Unlike usual, we will not take people in order of arrival, but take them in order of seniority because we expect some people to be coming to us remotely. So I will begin. Director, we don't have a lot of details at this time on the 2022 budget. So I want to ask more about what the agency is doing currently. Can you tell us what percentage of competitive research proposals NSF currently funds?
Thank you. We fund about 20% on an average of proposals that we receive.
And I think 20%, you said.
Yeah, about 20% on an average across several years.
And what percentage of total proposals are highly meritorious as determined by reviewers?
About 1/3 of the proposals that we receive are deemed as highly meritorious and worthy of investment.
So you have about 10% that you receive that you're not able to fund.
That is correct.
Do you have any way to quantify what kinds of opportunities we're missing by not being able to fund that additional 10%?
These are fantastic ideas that we are leaving behind. And my worry is that when we leave behind these ideas, somebody else picks up on those ideas who are our global competitors. We cannot and must not leave those ideas to be taken by anybody else, but we should be investing in them and advancing those technologies so that we might create the many, many companies and industries and societally meaningful innovation outcomes that we realize here, right here in our nation.
Thank you. And what's the average length of an NSF grant?
Typically 3 years, around 3 years is our average.
And is that normally the time that the researcher needs in order to get the conclusions they're looking for?
Typically, the researcher, having been a researcher myself and having had graduate students in my team, typically I would say a 4 to 5 year time frame would be the most optimal because PhD students typically take that length of time to complete their research work.
And what's the average size of an NSF grant?
Currently, it's about $200,000.
And is that the average that people ask for, or is that the average that you're able to provide based on funding?
Based on funding, that is the average typically that we are able to provide, and people do know what is the right size to ask for, although they know that is not the size that would essentially express their talent and ideas in the best possible way. So a current average ideally would be about $300K for a grant because we have not increased this in several years.
Great. So you say several years, the last time that this changed? Do you know?
Changes have happened over the years, but if you look at the cumulative lag, you would say that we ought to be at a size of $300K rather than the small increases that we have been able to provide over the years.
So you would recommend increasing the size of the awards if we can?
About 50% increase in the award size is where we should be in order to be able to execute the work that is being proposed.
So if today you were going to be able to fund every meritorious proposal that came before the agency, how much additional funding would you need? And if you were also able to increase it to that $300,000?
Today, if we were to take these factors into consideration, where we are able to fund all the proposals that needed to be funded, which are highly ranked, that is 33% success rates approximately, the duration being about 4 to 5 years, and the size being about 50% more to, let's say, $300K, and you are now talking about a doubling of the size of the existing budget, because that takes us to about $8 to $9 billion of great ideas and talent that is left behind. And this is why the current proposed budget increase that the President has put forth in the FY22 budget, as well as the American Jobs Plan, are excellent frameworks, because what happens is that not only are these ideas an important, Chair Shaheen, it's also that these ideas further have to be brought to the market. And there's a lot of gaps that have to be addressed. Now, if you start to bring those programs like ICOR, SBIR, STTR, or new innovation centers and accelerators that you need to build, in order for us to be in the vanguard of competition, then you are actually looking at probably doubling that even more. It's almost like a quadrupling of funding. And that's why this aligns with the American Jobs Plan as well as the Endless Frontier Act in terms of concept. The spirit of Endless Frontier Act is very much aligned with where we need to be as a nation so that we don't miss out on these important ideas and not let any other country take advantage of us.
So do you feel like you have the authorities you need currently, and it's just a question of resources?
Yes, resources would be the most important thing, and then comes with that the kind of frameworks that we are talking about. For example, we have proposed the crosscut of a Directorate of Technology, not a separate directorate, but a crosscut that further enriches the science and technology innovations, but also leverages and energizes those technology innovation and brings it to market right away and brings it to societally good initiatives right away. This is what we need to do more of. I call it strengthening at speed and scale.
Thank you. Senator Moran.
Dr. Panchanathan, as I said in my opening statement, I'll try to flesh this out a bit more. As you would know, just 10 states receive more than half of all NSF award funding. I think it's important for us to ensure robust academic research across the country, opportunities for all students. In my own state of Kansas, one of my goals as a citizen and perhaps as a senator is to see that we emphasize research, science, mathematics, engineering. And I want the students who grow up in Kansas and attend Kansas universities, I want them to have the opportunity to participate in nationally important research. Each state, no matter how small, has something to offer our nation. It has talents and expertise to contribute to our country's research. How do you plan to address? And I know EPSCoR is one way, but it is such a small component of the overall research budget at NSF. How do you plan to address broadening the participation across the country in terms of opportunities that are currently being missed because of the nature of the way the program is administered?
Senator, thank you. You know, when I came to NSF, I laid out a vision. 3 pillars. The central pillar, which I'll focus on, I call it accessibility and inclusivity. Talent and ideas, as you rightly point out, is everywhere across our great nation. It is therefore our responsibility to ensure that we are given the environments that are going to bring out the talent at speed and scale. How do you inspire, nurture, motivate talent everywhere? This is the time that we need the domestic talent at the highest level of intensity to make sure that we are leaping forward ahead of our competition. So, to specifically address your question, when I came in, we were launching the AI Institutes program. And I immediately said, AI Institutes has to be AI in every state. Every state of our nation has got AI expertise, either already available or we have an obligation to train the AI expertise. Because AI is going to be part of us. It's like electricity in the future. It's part of us. It's part of everything that's going to happen. So we want the talent to be trained everywhere. We want the talent to be nurtured, as well as ideas to be nurtured and connected everywhere. You're right about the fact that EPSCoR program can be an augmentative additive, but it cannot be the only vehicle for ensuring that we have talent and ideas across the nation inspired and nurtured. So NSF is doing everything to make sure that these programs like AI, and even in the quantum, we are talking about a quantum, national quantum platform, which means a 5th grader or 8th grader who's inspired by STEM from Manhattan, Kansas, can dial into the quantum platform and be inspired by that. And that way they get, to build their STEM talent and contribute to the great state of Kansas and our nation. And more importantly, as the STEM talent, in your opening remarks you mentioned, the skilled technical workforce that is being developed out of community colleges, out of 4-year colleges, out of research universities, we need all of the above in order to be able to bring forth the businesses of the future. We need to have in every area, every region of our country, those areas that are best for that particular region. Let's pick, for example, in Kansas. Where else would you do agriculture as a smart agriculture of the future than a state like Kansas? That you will build an ecosystem around agriculture in a state like Kansas, working with other states like Iowa and others, working together, creating an ecosystem of prosperity, jobs, new industries, entrepreneurial environments. This is the kind of thing that we need everywhere in our nation. And NSF is going to be working really hard. And when I made the comments, the chair's question about the funding, this is where I think NSF is very well positioned and unique as an agency to be able to nicely synergize the curiosity-driven research and the use-inspired outcomes and generating the industries of the future. I will leave you with this last comment. NSF is not only thinking about taking AI, quantum, which are the industries of today or tomorrow, but we are also working on the future of the industries of the future. What is going to be that industry like AI is today in 2035 or 2050? That's what NSF makes possible. Why? Because AI was an investment made at NSF for the last 4 or 5 decades. And today we are seeing the fruits of it. Not only what NSF is able to advance, but also what other agencies and industries are able to advance. This is what makes NSF unique and powerful. And we should take full advantage of such an agency and its potential and what it can do for our nation.
Doctor, I'm out of time. I'll ask just a follow-up question, and hopefully we'll have a chance to ask additional questions later. But if we are successful, if we support, Congress supports, the Senate, the subcommittee supports additional funding for NSF, would I see a different result than 50% of the research funding going to 10 states? Does it come with that additional resources? Will there be something different?
So, Senator, I can answer it to you very directly. When I came into the agency, I came from the state of Arizona. I know firsthand what every state can do, small or big, can do for our nation. And that we are missing a lot of talent and ideas right now. I know that. I have firsthand experience having seen that. And I know that when you provide the right environment for those ideas and talent to manifest and express, we can realize unbelievable progress and prosperity for our nation. So I am committed. And that's why I say my central pillar is about advancing inclusivity and accessibility. I am committed to ensuring that these regional prosperity innovation centers are everywhere across our nation. So you will see that in action.
Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you, Senator. We will now recess, hopefully for about 20 minutes or so while we go do our 2 votes. So thank you, Director.
Thank you, Chair and Ranking Member.
This hearing will come back to order. I think Senator Moran will be here shortly, but why don't we go ahead and begin? Director, we thought we had Senator Manchin remotely, but he has stepped away, so hopefully he will come back and we'll get a chance to go to him. But in the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and ask some additional questions. So we talked a little bit, I did in my opening remarks, about the proposal that would create a new National Science Foundation Directorate focused on technology development. And it's an idea that is also in the Endless Frontier Act that the Senate is expected to take up soon. The directorate would be focused on 10 priority topics. Some of them you mentioned that you're already looking at, but those include AI, quantum computing, robotics, clean energy. And President Biden's infrastructure plan proposes investing $50 billion in this new technology directorate. So can you talk about whether you need any authorities to do the kinds of things that the new directorate is proposing, and how would the creation of that technology directorate benefit NSF, or what kinds of challenges would it present to NSF?
Okay. So as I said earlier in my comment, this directorate that we are going to build is going to be a cross-cutting directorate, which means that it does not stand alone, but actually leverages the technologies that are being sourced out of the various science directorate that comes out. Let's take AI and quantum and others. These were decades of basic research investments that have gotten us to the point where we have the maturity in some of those cases that they can be translated into technologies that then positions us in a very highly competitive way at speed and scale. Otherwise these things take a long time because of the nature of the curiosity-driven research and user-inspired research being highly synergistic. It's possible to take these out very rapidly if only there is a tight integration between the two. And that's why the cross-cut is very helpful. So that, as I said, it leverages those technologies. It also contributes to advancing future technologies. And in the cross-cut, we are able to take those technologies through various programs like the I-Core program or the SBIR STTR program, or new programs like Innovation Accelerator programs, where you have a public-private partnership model where academia, industry, and the community and others work together in building ecosystems of excellence in various parts of our nation. So all of these things can be done through this directorate. So what is proposed in the jobs plan by the President recently, as well as the Endless Frontier Act legislation, potential legislation. So what these things give you is the spirit of what we are trying to do at speed and scale can be accomplished by these activities. So the new activities that we need to do requires us to be able to get those things done. When I'm talking about the cross-cut directorate, the appropriate flexibilities that is given to NSF is important for us to be able to execute on them. And when we have those flexibilities, I'm confident that we will be able to execute them. And there are many examples here that we will draw from. May not be necessarily replicating them. DARPA is talked about, or other kinds of agencies that have translational programs, including NSF, can be taken into consideration in terms of building the new models that we need to build, in addition to scaling our existing models. So we will need both of that happening at the same time.
So earlier today, we had a hearing in the Defense Appropriations Subcommittee, and we heard from representatives from DARPA and from the research and engineering aspect of DoD. And one of the things they talked about is the work that they're doing on quantum computing, on AI, on basically the same list that you ticked off earlier. So can you talk about how you work with the other agencies within the federal government that are also working on similar kinds of research and innovation, and how do you avoid overlap in the work that's being done?
So partnership is a very, very important imperative for me. When I talked about the 3 pillars, I said the foundation of the pillars is partnerships. Partnerships of every form, of every type is very, very important for us to advance these technologies. And one of the first things that you partner with is fellow agencies who are also working on these technologies, but with a specific focus. One of the things that makes NSF unique is that it has the basic science and technology platform, all of which can be translated into technologies of the future. And there are focused technologies for example, in the case of the Department of Defense, defense-related technologies. So where there is opportunity to partner, NSF will be partnering with all those agencies. I will tell you, when I took office in July of last year, the first couple of weeks, I picked up the phone and talked to almost every leader of various agencies so that we might partner even more. I told them not only what we are already doing, but partnering at a macro scale around these topical and thematic areas, be it AI, be it quantum, be it climate, be it advanced manufacturing, to find the appropriate partners, because I think we need to partner and leverage our individual expertise, but with uniqueness in each of our agencies in NSF to be able to take all those technologies that are out there and bring them to market as rapidly as we can. That's what we need to do at NSF. And some of those, for example, energy technologies, clearly can be a partnership with the Department of Energy. And there is value in doing that.
I want to come back to that question, but I'm out of time. And so let me go to Senator Haggerty, and then I will come back in the next round.
Chairman Shaheen, thank you very much for hosting us today. Director, thank you for being here. This is a critical area for us. The United States spends billions upon billions of dollars on research and development. We do it each year with government agencies that range from your agency at the National Science Foundation, the Department of Energy, the Department of Defense. The Office of Science and Technology Policy is charged with sort of coordinating all of this effort so that it's thoughtful, so that it's strategic. But unfortunately, so many times we see our agencies get siloed in their efforts. You talk about partnerships, and I'm delighted to hear you doing that because I want to make certain we're making the most of our research and development expenditures and not duplicating or competing in areas where we ought not be. In an attempt to solve the problems, some of our nation's most serious challenges, when you talk about artificial intelligence, you talked about quantum computing. When I think about biotechnology, advanced manufacturing, we want to advance as rapidly as possible. We do not want to be left in any position other than first in the world. And I want to make certain as we do this, we know very well what we're doing as a nation. Earlier, last year and in the beginning of this year, Congress worked on a bipartisan basis to enact the Industries of the Futures Act. It was enacted on January 1st of this year. And that law charged the Office of Science and Technology Policy with providing Congress with an assessment and a set of recommendations that would relate to our investments in research and development. And that report is due to us on May 1st. And it's supposed to take a broad view of the full expanse of government R&D expenditures. I'd like to know, first, Director, has the National Science Foundation been participating in this report? And if so, what are you learning?
So, Senator, thank you for asking this question. So basically what we found when it came to NSF is that there's already a very strong partnership between NSF and OSTP. I found that. And I have further strengthened this partnership because, as you rightly point out, OSTP is a coordinator of sorts. You can think of it that way in terms of making sure the agencies can work together even more strongly in addition to what we reach out and do ourselves. So we are working with OSTP very closely, and including the AI activities. And it is our intent to make sure that we will have a significant contribution in that in the report that you mentioned. And that is the way we operate. And we have co-chaired, as you know, as part of the NSTC, we co-chair the AI task force. NSF participates very, very actively in that activity.
Is your sense the administration will make the statutory deadline, the May 1st deadline?
I have no knowledge of that. I'm happy to find more details, but we don't have any knowledge of that, Senator.
Well, one thing I want to make certain that you agree with is that it makes sense that we understand how much, where, and exactly the precise nature of federal government expenditures and how we're allocating those expenditures today before we begin to add billions of more dollars to those expenditures.
Can you repeat the question?
From a timing standpoint, do you agree that we ought to have the benefit of this report so that we can understand precisely where and how we are allocating our research and development resources before we begin to add more billions of dollars.
Senator, as you know, I can only talk about what NSF can do in terms of what we are doing in AI, and can give you some examples of what we have been doing in AI because you specifically addressed AI. Just last year, we launched 7 AI institutes, and now this time we are launching 8 more institutes, and we put the call out. And one of those calls is made possible because of our strong partnership with industry. I mean, we have Amazon, Google, Accenture, and Intel. We went to them and we said, how might we work together to build, a $20 million partnership? And each of these institutes is $20 million scale. So now instead of 7 institutes, we're going to be launching 8 because of that partnership. Yeah. So we are doing everything at NSF to see how we might, through partnership,
and leveraging the private sector.
Leveraging partnerships to see how we can scale the AI activities, the quantum activities. We work very closely with other agencies in AI, including the Department of Energy, for example, and quantum. We launched the institutes together with them. So we will be doing everything at NSF to partner with industry, with other agencies, with communities, so that we might leverage the assets that we have at NSF to produce the best outcomes in terms of unleashing ideas and talent.
I think that's going to be absolutely critical because the magnitude of the increase that we're talking about here is going to far exceed your current infrastructure. And if you don't have the ability to leverage and coordinate well, I think we're going to have a serious challenge in your hands. You do have a serious challenge with what's coming down the pike. We are challenged as a nation from a technology standpoint, so I wish you the very best as you approach this challenge and encourage you to continue to exercise these partnerships in an aggressive manner.
Thank you very much, Senator, for the question. I agree with you. Our competition, as I always say, the moment we look back and check our competition, that's not a good thing. We should be leaping forward so far ahead that our competition is not something that even bother to check back. And that's the position that I would like us to be in. We have always been in the vanguard of competition, and now is the time for us to accelerate. Again, I'll repeat the tagline I use all the time: strengthen at speed and scale. We need to be leaping forward. And at NSF, we are focused intensely on that, intentionally and intensely, to make sure that we are leaping forward in progress. And the support of Congress and support of all of you is very vital for us to get there.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Haggerty. I think we have Senator Reid coming to us remotely, virtually.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. And thank you, Director, for your service at NSF, which is a critical agency. And I've always been a strong supporter of EPSCoR and its key role at NSF. And I've also tried to expand it to the Department of Defense and Department of Energy. But can you describe in your restructuring and expansion of NSF how you're going to ensure that EPSCoR states like Rhode Island are full participants in the research and technology development envisioned under these changes? And is there anything we can do to enhance those efforts?
Thank you. I was talking about my central pillar of my vision when I came into the agency, which is focused on inclusivity and accessibility. I feel talent and ideas are across the nation in every part of our nation. That's the fantastic thing that we have in our nation. The domestic talent and the ideas that we are creating every day domestically is just fantastic. How do we tap into the potential of ideas and talent? How do we nurture the talent? How do we make this talent possible to take real form so that we might create the industries of the future, the entrepreneurial activities of the future, so that we might have the impact that we desire to have? And that's not only what we do with EPSCoR programs, having as an augmentation effect of ensuring that we do much more in terms of specific technology focus areas, but I would like to see that we will have talent everywhere nurtured as part of the mainstream of activities that NSF pushes forward into the future. At the same time, I'd also like to make sure that the regional innovation accelerators are everywhere across our nation. And this requires not only the EPSCoR support being augmentative, but the mainstream activities of NSF is going to make all of these things possible in all parts of our nation. And so I'm committed to that. And I know that we can get this done because of all the support that the Congress is providing and will provide into the future, and the administration is providing. And again, the thematic activities like what EFA provides and the American Jobs Plan provides, I think is a perfect timing for what we can do into the future in terms of accelerating all of this and making sure that progress happens across our nation, everywhere geographically.
I think one of the other advantages, Mr. Director, of EPSCoR is that it tends to reach out to the small, innovative companies that have relationships with the university communities throughout the United States. So this, I believe, would be another effective way of mobilizing small business, which in many respects is the most innovative parts of our economy. And I hope you share that feeling.
I definitely share that feeling, Senator, because that's why when I talked about the SBIR and SCTR programs, these are rich programs that we can further expand and scale to have even more impact in terms of what we can do for various companies, small businesses, to not only grow and scale, but then through that, actually inspire more new companies and more new entrepreneurial ventures happening in every state, like the state of Rhode Island. I've had the good fortune of being part of shaping the innovation campus idea in Rhode Island, partnering with the University of Rhode Island when I was in Arizona. So I know the potential and the promise that is there in the state of Rhode Island, for example, that I know is everywhere across our nation. It is in Arizona where I came from. So I know it is everywhere. And it is for us to make sure that we are ensuring that the talent is nurtured and brought to life. We're ensuring that these small businesses and entrepreneurial ventures are given a chance to scale and succeed.
Thank you, Mr. Director. Thank you, Madam Chairman. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator Reed. Senator Van Hollen.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, and to the ranking member, Mr. Director, great to see you here. As you know, the state of Maryland is a great engine of research and technology in the United States, home to many federal agencies, 2 large academic research institutions, lots of other important assets. And I was pleased to hear your enthusiasm for both the American Jobs Plan and also the budget that's been submitted by the Biden administration, which is, as the chair said, is important to making sure the United States maintains an edge and doesn't fall behind. And I think all of us do worry that if you look at the global numbers and our share of R&D, we're slipping potentially farther behind if we don't act. In 1960, the United States contributed close to 70% of global research and development investments. By the year 2018, we accounted for about 27% of those investments. As you know, in 2015, China launched the Made in China initiative. You've mentioned China's efforts in your testimony today. That was a strategic plan to try to promote and become dominant in certain technologies by the year 2025. And they now represent about 26% of global investment in R&D. So we're really at, I think, a tipping point here in the United States, and that's why it's so essential that we move forward. Senator Roy Blunt and I are going to introduce this week something called the National Strategy to Ensure American Leadership Act, the SEAL Act, where we're going to ask the National Academy of Sciences, Engineering, and Medicine to look around the corner a little bit, as you say, and identify areas where the United States has to focus in order not to get caught behind. And obviously, NSF will play a critical role in whatever findings they make as part of that effort. One of those areas that we know of now is, of course, quantum information science. And the University of Maryland, NIST, ARL, IonQ, these are all Maryland entities that are very engaged in that space. President Biden's budget includes a proposal for a new NSF Directorate to expedite technology development in areas that are critical to our competitiveness. How do you envision that sort of unfolding, and what role do you see for quantum technologies within that new directorate?
Thank you. I see quantum as one of those technologies that is very, very important and vital for us to ensure that we are far ahead of any other nation. We have the capacities to do that simply because of the fact that all aspects of quantum information science has been what NSF's investments and other investments have made possible over several decades to get where we are today. So we should be leveraging every bit of that set of investments and translating them as quickly as we can, as well as building newer technologies and newer ideas around science, engineering, and other realms, so that quantum might be something that we will be, as I said, far ahead of any others. With respect to the Technology Directorate that you mentioned, this is the purpose of the Technology Directorate, is that it might take these early ideas and technologies that are even emerging, quantum being one of them, AI we know is another, and biotechnology is another, and we can go down the set of technologies that are emerging, and some are just yet in the labs, what I call how do we take the bench ideas to benefits. They're still in the lab. How do we take all these technologies, and the Technology Directorate, therefore, is how do we leverage these technologies that are emerging from the science directorates How do we then energize the activities in quantum even more so that we are ready for the next set of ideas that are coming out, next set of technologies that are coming out, even in the quantum realm? How do we then take those ideas and then quickly translate them into entrepreneurial ventures? How do we work with companies so that the companies then can be more competitive than ever before? How do we develop regional ecosystems of prosperity around quantum where it is most ideally located in our nation? All of these things have to be done, and that's why we're very excited by the FY22 budget request, the American Jobs Plan request, as well as the concept of Endless Frontier Act, which is all talking about how we might leverage what we have already invested in over several decades in the United States and leapfrog into the future.
Thank you.
You rightly point out about the competition, and I agree with that.
Thank you, Mr. Director. I see my time is short, so I'm going to mention a couple things. Maybe you can get back to me on the record. One is, in order to maximize our potential, we need all of our scientific sort of players on the field here. We need everybody involved. HBCUs have been underrepresented when it comes to NSF investments in the past, even though 25% of African Americans earn their degrees in STEM at HBCUs. I look forward to your strategy for addressing those issues. Also, labs impacted by COVID-19. And finally, some information on alternative protein research, which a lot of people have been looking into. So I'll be submitting questions for the record on those topics.
Thank you, Senator. We'll be happy to answer all of those.
Thank you very much, Senator Van Hollen. Senator Braun.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't want to repeat what was maybe already discussed, but in the time I've been here, which is a little over 2 years, I think we're probably at the most perilous point in my observation of what I was concerned about before I got here, and that is how we continue to do the things that are most important for the American public and do it in a way that we honestly can say it's going to be there down the road. And I know what you do, and the amount of dollars we're talking about, and this doesn't hardly register anymore when the new denomination is trillions. But I do think it's always worth mentioning that even for good functions like this, or the NIH, which to me is investing in something that is about as close to being tangible as you can get, but I think it's in peril in the mid and the long run when we do not exercise the political will around here to rein in what is now a $1 trillion structural deficit. $1 trillion. And you look at what we've added to our balance sheet just through COVID. To me, some of that was obviously necessary, but a lot of it, you can argue that it wasn't absolutely necessary. And all of that puts us in peril to where when we're no longer the reserve currency, the pain starts to come in immediately. That may not occur for a while. When we do fully deplete the Medicare Trust Fund and maybe the Social Security Trust Fund, which I think is earmarked for early in the 2030s, that is what bothers me. So when I look here in terms of what is being requested, from the $8.5 billion up to $10 billion or even $50 billion, that to me seems like a very reasonable figure, even at the higher amount. But when it's in the context of how we run this place in general, I think it's incumbent for any one of us when we're interested in, really like something that makes sense, especially this, which I consider an investment, that we can't lose sight of where we're at in general, and especially the American public understanding it. I think there was some discussion earlier about how you'd ramp up when you'd take either a roughly 15 to 20% increase, let alone a 400 to 500% increase. How long would it take for you actually to build up to where you had enough critical mass to actually spend that kind of money if, in fact, it fell into your lap?
Thank you, Senator. The first thing I wanted to say is this is an investment with a return on investment. And I want to start with that so that I know that, I appreciate the point that you made, absolutely. And, when you look at the Digital Libraries Project that was funded in the early 90s, And a couple of years later, we had a final report on the project which said that we are launching the company Google. That was the final report on that project that NSF received back. And we know that it's one of the companies that is competing fairly and squarely and far ahead and keeping us ahead. Likewise, Qualcomm was an SBIR, Small Business Innovation Research Project, that was funded by NSF several in the 80s. So you can clearly see that there is a lot of examples to be seen where we can actually have a significant return on investment, not only in terms of the trained talent, but also in terms of the companies that get spun out and the entrepreneurial ventures that get spun out, which makes possible regional innovation ecosystems of significant vibrancy. Now, when you talk about the ramp up, I was just mentioning earlier that if you look at the existing projects that are at NSF that should be funded, that are not being funded, and these are ideas that we are leaving behind, that I fear that our competitors are going to take advantage of those ideas by their investments and move that forward, that would not be a good thing for us as a nation. So we need to make sure that every bit of ideas that has been reviewed and shown to be worthy of investment need to be invested in, because our nation cannot let those ideas not be nurtured right here and developed right here, and then the translation happening right here in our nation. Right there, Senator, we are talking about a doubling of the budget.
I got one follow-up question because my time is running short. On the $50 billion figure, was that your suggestion or the administration's in terms of the amount?
So I had put forth a vision, basically in terms of what we can do. I talked about the concept of what we can do. I've been talking about it since I joined NSF. I laid out the vision for NSF, where I talked about how we can take all the fantastic science and technology activities that NSF has been doing and how we might leverage this by a cross-cut thinking of technology as part of that. So the vision and the ideas are something that I've been talking about for several months now since I got here, and that's, Senator, based on my experience in Arizona. In my previous role, I had seen firsthand how when you take research, technology development, economic development, partnership with industry, and bringing the regional economic development activities together, you can really make a region prosper. And it attracts new companies. So I know that this can be done nationally, and this is a time for us to do that. You refer to our competition. This is a time for us to do that at speed and scale across our nation. So it can be done. And so the concept is something that I've been talking about.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Braun. Senator Haggerty, I understand that you would like a second round, so let me go to you.
Might help if I turn this on. Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate that. I just want to follow up on the questions that Senator Van Hollen asked, particularly focused on supercomputing, quantum computing. And I think the senator from Maryland made a great point that this is an area of great competition that we're in right now, and the United States' share of research dollars is declining. Even though our absolute expenditures are going up, it's because China is investing so heavily in these areas. And if that investment continues, if they achieve the breakthrough that they're looking for, they may be in a position to, by brute force, break our encryption technology. That's not a place that we ever want to be. I'd like, if I might, turn to my home state of Tennessee. There, as you well know, Oak Ridge National Lab is a gem of the United States, and we run the Summit supercomputer. It's our country's fastest supercomputer to date, and later this year we're going to introduce an exascale computer. Again, the supercomputing is a great strength of ours there in Tennessee at Oak Ridge National Lab. I understand also that the National Science Foundation has supercomputing capacity. Back to the original theme, I want to encourage you, Director, to make certain that we are coordinating as best as we possibly can. Because as we put billions of dollars to work, billions of American tax dollars to work, as Senator Braun rightly mentioned, are scarce and precious even more now than ever before. We need to make sure that we get the most of that investment, and it's going to require a great deal of coordination.
Thank you, Senator. I will tell you two things in quick response. I am all about partnerships. I mentioned that to you. When the COVID hit, the pandemic hit, we quickly constituted what we call the High Performance Computing Consortium. This was partnership between Department of Energy, NSF, and companies like IBM coming together and saying, how might we provide the high-performance computing cycles that are necessary to combat this pandemic by the models that we need to look at and understand how the virus behaves and how we might combat the pandemic through the thinking. So we are working very closely with the Department of Energy, not only in the high-performance computing realm, but in quantum and other emerging areas. And I believe with the second thought, last week I had my first conversation with Secretary Granholm. I reached out and I said, Secretary, I would like to have a conversation with you. And she was kind enough to give me the time. And I said, how might we work together, Secretary? We might be partnering with each other because, Department of Energy and NSF can do even greater things as we move things forward. So you can count on my DNA of partnership that I have to see how I can reach out and talk to every agency out there to see how we might work together. Because as a nation, we need that to move us forward at speed and scale.
Yeah. Well, I applaud that effort. Thank you. And Madam Chair, thank you very much for the additional time.
Sure. Senator Manchin, if you're ready, we can take you right now. You can sit wherever you want.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Senator.
Let me get. Which one is it? Which one have you asked?
Okay. Here you go. Okay. This one here. The other thing I'd just say is that you need to bring back.
Doctor, so good to have you here. Thank you very much. Okay. Last year, the Energy Committee worked in a bipartisan manner to assemble and pass the Energy Act, as you recall, proving the commitment my colleagues and I shared to advancing innovation across many technology areas. That law and several others focus on the Department of Energy and the national labs, leadership role in research, development, and commercialization of several energy technologies, as well as advances in computing, manufacturing, and so many other areas. And I understand the roles that National Science Foundation and the Department of Energy and national laboratories play in the broader innovation landscape, and I support the mission of each organization. I want to focus my question on the relationship between the DOE and the NSF with regards to research and development. So I think I can ask, Doctor, if you agree that the Department of Energy and national labs play a very critical role in the technology research, development, and commercialization in the fields mentioned in the Endless Frontier Act.
Senator, I was just, before you walked in, I was just talking about the strong partnership that we have with the Department of Energy in the areas of quantum, in the high-performance computing area. Senator, we partnered with them in ensuring that the high-performance cycles were available between our two high-performance computing infrastructure that we have so that we might combat the pandemic fairly and squarely. We partnered with energy in the area of AI. We partner with energy in a lot of other projects, and most importantly, facilities, the fantastic facilities that we have, and whether it is the facility in Switzerland or whether it is the facility in Chile, we partner with DOE, and we look forward to strengthening those partnerships. So this is something that I am very, very keen to do. I was just saying that I spoke to Senator Granholm last week, and I reached out to Senator Granholm and said, I would very much like to talk to you about how we might strengthen this partnership even more.
Right.
She and I are, absolutely committed to seeing how we might work together, even
what
more.
What we're trying to prevent from happening is reinventing the wheel. And Madam Chairman, if you will allow me, the DOE has already got the national labs all over the country, as you know. The amount of money that they were trying to move around now and maybe investing again, are we trying to reinvent a wheel where we're paying double for what we already have already done? So in doing that, you have $100 billion, I think, was going to be invested for us to be able to compete at the levels we need to compete globally and still be a global leader. Do you believe that money should go to the national labs or part of that money, or do you think all of it should come to NSF?
Senator, that's up to Congress to decide what is the right thing to do. But I can only tell you from the point of view of NSF, there are unbelievable technologies at NSF. This is not just only about energy technologies. Clearly in energy technologies, we need to partner with Department of Energy labs and others. But when we talk about NSF, NSF pilots all technologies, broad spectrum of technologies. And so whether it is in our Geo Directorate or Bio Directorate or Computing Directorate or Engineering Directorate, whatever the directorate might be, there are many, many technologies that are emerging from NSF.
Are you able to commercialize these technologies?
Yes.
Do you have the experience of commercializing them, such as the labs?
So that's the infrastructure that we already have, Senator, in terms of, if you look at our I-Core program, our own SBIR, STTR program, and the proposals that we have in terms of the innovation centers and accelerators that we think are necessary to be built as a public-private partnership. And that partnership, Senator, can also include other agencies, no question about that. I think I look at this as this is a time where all technologies that needs to be brought rapidly to market is exceedingly important for us to compete against our competitors like China. We need to unify ourselves and see how we can do this faster.
Well, we would like, in West Virginia, you know, we do a lot of the heavy lifting, and it's something we're proud of. We would like to invite you to make sure that you come to our Green Bank Observatory. Have you been to that? I don't think.
I have not yet, Senator,
You
but
need
I
to
would
come.
most certainly welcome the opportunity of being with
We're
you.
inviting you with our open arms to come and visit, because I think it'll be exciting for you.
Accepted.
And also maybe in Morgantown to see our lab, our NETL lab, National Energy Technology Lab,
Yes.
which has done so much in the areas of energy production for our country and maximum efficiencies. Also Marshall University's RCBI, the Apprentice Workship. Now you all work,
Yes.
I think, with that. You all do a lot with Apprentice Workships,
Yes.
which has been very, very instrumental and done a great job. So we look forward to working with you. I appreciate the hard work. I hope that we can work together, myself on energy and basically with the NSF and also our labs, so that we don't have a redundancy or a competition. We take what each one does and expertise you have and make sure that we build off of that so we get the best return. And then sharing information back and forth.
Senator, I would agree with you. I think as a nation, we need to advance all science technology aspirations. More importantly, Senator, you brought up something that is very important and dear to my heart, is how do we get talent everywhere energized? In the great state of West Virginia, for example, there are talents and there are pathways.
Yeah.
Some talent may go through a four-year university. Some may go through a research university. Some may go through a community college. Some may go through after a K-12 with a vocational training. All STEM talent needs to be inspired, motivated, nurtured. That's where I think NSF shines. NSF programs ensures that we not only take care of how do we get the best science teachers inspiring the K-12 talent, best K-12 programs, understanding how people learn so we can develop better outcomes through learning, and then ensuring that all pathways are energized. So this is something that I believe is very important for us, the talent part, for all parts of our nation, including West Virginia. And I look forward to the opportunity of being with you in the Green Bank Observatory. I know my time is short, but I will tell you I have personal attachment to that. My father was a radio astronomer, so I know how important radio astronomy facilities are.
I'll have my staff reach out. We'll set up an appointment. I'll just meet you there, or we'll take you there, whatever. But I think it'll be extremely interesting. It's called the Quiet Zone.
Yes, Quiet Zone, yes. We value that immensely. Thank you so much.
Look forward to working with you. Thank
Likewise,
you so much.
I look forward to working with you too.
Thank you, Senator Manchin, and I'm glad you came back to that topic, Director, because I have another round, and it's about exactly that. I talked in my opening statement about the importance of STEM education. You talked in your testimony about the importance of inclusivity and how do we bring more people in to have the STEM backgrounds that they need so that they can do the research and the innovation that the country needs. The 2022 budget request has an additional $100 million to help address this. Can you talk a little more with specificity about how you see using that $100 million and how you envision reaching out to make STEM opportunities more inclusive for people?
Senator, as you know, additional details on specific things will come out when the President's budget request formally comes out. We will have all of the details, but I can speak to the principles of what we are doing right now.
Yeah, well, speak to your vision for how you see being more diverse and inclusive, and how we get those folks into what we're trying to do.
Senator, thank you. As I said, I'm very, very passionate about talent everywhere being energized, and particularly in our MSIs, HBCUs, HSIs, and tribal colleges and universities, TCUPs, and our community colleges. We need to make sure that talent is everywhere and that the talent has the opportunity, therefore, to be nurtured right where the talent is, to give opportunities, that they don't have to, therefore, go to some other place. They may do so by choosing to do that, but not because they have no other choice where they are. And so we are ensuring that we are listening to HBCUs, asking them instead of pretending that we know the answer to everything. NSF is really good at convening through workshops and seminars and through advisory committees. I'm constantly listening to people. How can we do even more better? How can we do this at a larger scale? So we have a number of pilot programs. Let's take HBCUs, for example. The HBCU STEM undergraduate program is a very successful program. And that program, for example, consults with the 50 HBCUs to see how we can energize the undergraduate talent to think about going for postgraduate as well as industry jobs and other career opportunities. So we are going to be working through our various pilot programs. Right now, I call them pilots. Some of them are pilots. And how do we scale them? So when we talk about new investments, it's ready for scaling these ideas. And by listening to the community, we can shape these programs so they achieve the success that we desire. So there is so many ideas that are out there and talent that is out there, but we need resources to be able to scale them fast. And that's why I'm very enthusiastic, I repeat this again, very enthusiastic about the FY22 budget, very enthusiastic about the American Jobs Plan, very enthusiastic about the spirit of EFA, because these things make possible because this is the time for us to do that. And I can assure you, and I can in fact give you the details offline in order to make sure that you have a complete coverage of all the things that we have going on right now at NSF in terms of what we call the Education Human Resources Directorate, pioneering programs, but also working in partnership with our other directorates to ensure that talent, wherever it is there, has the chance to be successful and that there are no barriers to that success. And so this is something that you will find in my vision. You alluded to my vision. My vision is to ensure there are no barriers to success, there are no barriers to scaling, and that people who have the talent are able to exercise that.
Well, thank you very much. I agree it's a very exciting time, and that the jobs plan and the other initiatives that have been offered provide very exciting opportunities, but we have to make sure that they work in the way that we envision and that we are getting the best bang for the buck out of the dollars that we spend. So I look forward to working with you on that. I know the committee looks forward to working with you on that. At this point, I don't think we have any more people waiting virtually, so I will close the hearing. If there are any questions for the record, we will submit those, and we hope that NSF can respond to any questions within 30 days. So again, thank you very much, Director. It's exciting. I really appreciate your being our kickoff hearing of the year, and look forward to what will be accomplished at NSF.
Thank you, Chair Shaheen and the committee members.
Thank you. Hearing is adjourned.